As far as Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson are concerned, of course they did their thing. But what was also noticeable was that most people didn't stand around for waiting for them. The centre of this march was a rather British, motley, slightly amateurish, slightly straggly, but people who had come out for, if you like, a very specific set of causes.
You understand what it was like to be there. For those who were not there, can you give us a sort of a feeling, a sense that you got on that march?
Yeah, if I can just make a point really about the importance of good journalism here. I heard you talking to Diane Abbott earlier on, and I wouldn't contest Diane's account of her experience of the march, but she was at the place where the small anti-racist demonstration met the group of people who would come to a march like that in order to confront that demonstration, which probably numbered maybe 1,000, a couple of thousand people. And one thing she said was really striking. She said they were all men. Well, actually, if you were at the other end of the march with the 100,000, 120,000 who were not part of that kind of commotion, what you would have noticed actually was that there were a lot of women, lots of middle-aged women, a lot of couples. The only touchiness I saw during the day really was an argument between a couple who'd come down from Midlands about whether it was safe to park their car near Parliament, because they think London is a place where, if you leave your belongings anywhere, they'll immediately get nicked. This was a march which was striking by the ordinariness of the people there. It was, if you like, the people going up the embankment in Whitehall would be the same sort of mix as you might encounter at the same time coming away from a football match these days, perhaps with fewer children, but nonetheless, basically that kind of person. And, I've noticed in the reporting, a lot has been focused on the bottle throwing and so on. I don't think most of the people there would have seen any of that. And as far as Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson are concerned, of course they did their thing. But what was also noticeable was that most people didn't stand around for waiting for them. The centre of this march was a rather British, motley, slightly amateurish, slightly straggly, but people who had come out for, if you like, a very specific...
Veteran broadcaster and presenter Trevor Phillips has criticized how the Unite the Kingdom march was framed in the press, arguing that media coverage failed to capture the motivations of most attendees. The march, which took place on Saturday, dominated headlines for the involvement of high-profile figures such as Elon Musk and far-right activist Tommy Robinson. Reports across several outlets describe the event as a flashpoint for extremist rhetoric, with much of the commentary focusing on Robinson's criminal record and Musk's incendiary call for constitutional change. But speaking on Times Radio, Phillips urged a more nuanced reading of the protest. People like us don't want to say it, but most of those there weren't waiting around for Elon Musk or Tommy Robinson, he remarked. Instead, he suggested, the bulk of the demonstrators were ordinary citizens, motivated by a deepening sense of frustration with Westminster politics, cost of living pressures, and a belief that their voices are ignored. Phillips' comments highlight a persistent fault line in the way protests are covered in Britain. For media outlets, the presence of lightning-rod personalities provides a ready-made headline. Yet this focus can overshadow the diversity of grievances that fuel mass mobilizations. By drawing attention to Robinson and Musk, critics argue, the press risks flattening a complex story into one of extremism alone. The intervention is significant given Phillips' reputation as a seasoned political analyst and commentator. As a former chair of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, he has often scrutinized the relationship between public policy, media framing, and social cohesion. His warning that the march was misrepresented adds weight to calls for journalists to broaden their lens when reporting on populist movements. The debate over the Unite the Kingdom march now reflects a larger question facing British politics. How should the establishment and the media that reports on it engage with movements that combine legitimate discontent with the presence of controversial figureheads? To ignore the grievances risks deepening public alienation. To legitimize extremist rhetoric risks normalizing dangerous politics. What is clear, however, is that the battle over how Saturday's march is remembered, either as an extremist rally or a populist outcry, will shape not only media narratives, but also the strategies of politicians seeking to respond to an increasingly volatile public mood.
Well, the Tory party is a very resilient part of our politics. It's the oldest party in British politics. The Tory party, with its roots deep in, ironically for Danny Kruger, in the church and in the institutions of this country, has been written off many times in the past. And you know what? It has survived and thrived. We're going through a very difficult period. There's no doubt about it. I lost my seat in the last election along with many other people, and it's proving a long, hard road. But, you know, I'm a great believer in John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, and Danny's perhaps forgotten the lesson of that, which is you take the hard way to go, better though difficult, the right way to go than wrong though easy, where the end is woe. And I'm afraid Danny's taken the easy path today. And whilst Reform are doing well, their opinion polls are very much in their favour, we've got a long way to go before this election. And I think the Conservatives make a mistake if they focus just on Reform instead of looking at the wider picture as well, to see where many other former supporters of the party have gone to, whether they voted Lib Dem or Labour or other parties. We need to work hard to recover confidence and competence and that sense of optimism and energy that I think an opposition party needs.
I totally agree, and I do think, to a large extent, Kemi Badenoch's leadership is to blame. She does want this slow and steady approach, but in a modern British politics setting where things are moving so quickly, you need to be responsive. And one of the things that Farage is exceptionally good at is getting on top of communications, communicating to the public. Kemi Badenoch seems to be lost in all of that. But let me just ask you one question very quickly, Sir Robert.
Yeah.
Should MPs that defect call a by-election in their areas?
Yes, I think they should. You know, I'm one of Danny's constituents. Part of his seat was my old seat of South Swindon. And I think a lot of us feel, well, look, we voted Conservative. We voted for a Conservative MP, and now he's gone off to another party. He should have the courage of his convictions and face the electors in a by-election. And you know, there are precedents for this. You remember the UKIP candidates like Douglas Carswell. They had the courage to stand for election, and they won. Now, you know, put up or shut up, frankly, and call that by-election, and let's see what happens. I'm not sure it will be a slam dunk for Reform, because at the last election they came a very distant third or fourth in that seat. Perhaps that's the real reason why they don't want to fight in East Wiltshire this time.